أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا حبيب الله العالمين أبي القاسم مصطفى محمد اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد وعجل فرجه. Hello everyone, welcome to the sixth week of Tadabbur on the Quran. Today we're gonna talk about the verses that invite us to do Tadabbur on the Quran. Then we will have the conclusion of chapter 74, Surah Al-Muddathir. We reviewed all verses in the week fourth and fifth. Now we're gonna have the conclusion on this part. But at the beginning of it, we're gonna have the verses that invite us to do tadabbur on the Quran. The first verse that I'm gonna talk about it is in Surah An-Nisa, verse 82. And it is أفلا يتدبرون القرآن ولو كان من عند غير الله لوجدوا فيه اختلافا كثيرا. Do they not do tadabbur on the Quran? So the first part is actually a question. أفلا يتدبرون القرآن is apparently a question, but it's not a real question. It's actually telling us that it's your duty to do tadabbur on the Quran, and it's questioning us that did you do the tadabbur on the Quran or not? It is your duty. We've been given a book, and this book claims that it is from God, and we have to do tadabbur on it. Why? What is the benefit of doing tadabbur on the Quran? The rest of this verse is going to tell us. ولو كان من عند غير الله لوجدوا فيه اختلافا كثيرا. If it had been from any other than God, so this book, which claims that it's from God, if it's not from God and if it's from someone else, for example, if a human wrote this, or like if the prophet wrote this, or like if it's a magician or this stuff, then they would have found within it much discrepancy or differences. If this book is not from God, if you read it, if you do tadabbur on the Quran, which tadabbur means a sequential study on the verses one by one to understand the overall goal of that chapter. If you do tadabbur on the Quran, then you will find out that there are many discrepancies in it. If this book is from God, then why there are those discrepancies? This is actually a suggestion from God, and it's telling us that if you want to find out that this book is from God, you have to do tadabbur on it. When you do tadabbur, tadabbur is a technical study, and if you do that kind of a study on the Quran, you will find out that all of the facts, all of the laws, all of those concepts which is in Quran, they're all aligned very well, and there is no discrepancy, there is no differences among those facts and those laws, and there is and they're all consistent. So one important thing about this verse is that at the first part, يتدبرون is a verb that it's talking to all of us. It's not talking to the prophet. It's not talking to the Islamic scholars. It's not talking only to the scientists or like philosophers. It's talking to all of us. يتدبرون is a verb and it's talking to all of us, and it means this is your duty, all of you, not only Muslims, not only Islamic scholars, all of you who wants to find out that this book, if it is from God or not, you have to do tadabbur on it. You have to study all of those verses one by one to find out the overall goal of each chapter. Then you can understand it. Then you can compare it with the other chapters. Then you can find out that there is no discrepancy on it and it's very unique. So based on this verse, we can claim that tadabbur is our job and it's for all of us. We have to do tadabbur on the Quran. Of course, doing translating Quran in a actually professional level, it's not our duty. We cannot do it. For example, if I don't know Arabic, I cannot translate Quran. But those people who can translate it, then I can use those translation and do the tadabbur on the Quran. So that was one verse. The next verse is in Surah Al-Mu'minun, chapter 23, verse 68. and it is أفلم يتدبروا القول أم جاءهم ما لم يأت آباءهم الأولين. Have they not done tadabbur on the word or al-qawl, which is the third word here in this verse? It means Quran. Quran in many verses introduced himself as al-qawl, which means the word. So again, this verse is talking to general audience. It's not talking only to Islamic scholars or a specific group of philosophers or scientists. It's just generally talking to everyone. Specifically, this verse, based on the chapter that it is in, we can find out that it's even talking to disbelievers. So tadabbur is not only for Muslims or only for believers, it's for everyone, even those disbelievers that they don't believe in Quran. If they do tadabbur on it, then they can find out if it's really a book from God or not. So this verse says that have they not done tadabbur on the word or on the Quran, or has there come to them that which had not come to their forefathers? You know, those disbelievers, they said that because this Quran was not among our fathers and it's not a old book, so we don't want to follow it. Many of them bring this kind of a excuse to say that because this book is has been sent down recently, we're not gonna follow it. We're gonna stay with the traditions that were among our fathers. So now Quran is questioning them that have you done tadabbur on the Quran or not? You have to do tadabbur on it. You have to study it. You have to read all of those verses and chapters. And if you find out that it's a um, divine book that this is from God, then you have to believe in it. You shouldn't bring this excuse that because it's not it wasn't among our fathers and stuff like this. This is not acceptable. The third verse is in Surah As-Sad, chapter 38, verse 29, and it is كتاب أنزلناه إليك مبارك ليدبروا آياته وليتذكر أولو الألباب. This is a blessed book. كتاب أنزلناه إليك مبارك. This is a blessed book which we have sent down to you. This one is talking to the prophet, and it's telling the prophet that we sent down to you a blessed book. So what? To do what? To just like, for example, keep it as a holy book and just looking at it as a blessed book and stuff like this. What is the reason that you sent down this book? What was the target of sending down this book? The rest of this verse is going to answer this question. In order to do tadabbur on its verses, and it's talking to everyone again, لِيَدَّبَّرُوا آيَاتِهِ. Lam at liyadabbaru ayate. That lam is lam al which means it's explaining the reason that God sent down this book in order to do tadabbur on its verses. So the reason that God sent down this book is the first reason is to do tadabbur on it, which means you have to read it, you have to understand it, and if you accept it as your ideology in your mind, then and in order to be reminded those of understanding. وَلِيَتَذَكَّرَ أُولُو الْأَلْبَابِ. Ulul albab means those people who understand things. They are wise people and they are mindful people. So the other reason that we sent down this book is after doing tadabbur on it, after studying it verse by verse and understanding it, then those people who are mindful, they will be reminded. So this verse is telling us about two reasons that God sent down a blessed book to his prophet. The first one is doing tadabbur, the second one is being reminded. As you see, liyadabbaru again is a verb which is talking to all of us, and it means tadabbur is our duty, and it is feasible for all of us. We can do tadabbur on the Quran. After accepting it in our mind, after understanding it, then those group who are mindful, who are fearful of God, then they will be reminded by that. And the fourth verse is in Surah Al-Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam, chapter 47, verse 24, and it is أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ أَمْ عَلَى قُلُوبٍ أَقْفَالُهَا. Do they not do tadabbur on the Quran, or are there locks upon their hearts? So again, this is a question apparently, but it's not a real question. It is telling us that your duty about Quran is doing tadabbur on it. Tadabbur is a technical method, and if you do tadabbur on the Quran, then you can find out that it's a book from God, and then after that, your heart will believe in it. But there is a point, there is a problem. Some people do tadabbur on the Quran, but because their heart is sick, like they are worldly people, and they care only about the worldly values, they cannot be reminded by the Quran there, and their heart will not accept the Quran. Okay, so this verse is telling us that you have to do tadabbur on the Quran, and when you understand it, you can follow it. But there is a problem. Some people, after understanding Quran and after doing tadabbur on it, they will not follow it. Why? Because their heart is sick, not the physical sickness. Okay, it doesn't mean so. It means their heart is worldly and they only care about the worldly value, and this is a sickness. And if their heart is sick, and if there are locks upon their hearts, then they cannot accept Quran in their heart, although they accept it in their mind, or although in the level of the ideology they can accept Quran, but they cannot accept it in their heart because there are locks upon their heart. So these were four verses of Quran that all of them invite us to do tadabbur on the Quran, and it's talking to all of us. These verses are not talking to a specific group of people, or like to the philosophers or Islamic scholars. It's talking to all of us, all of these verbs, and it's inviting us to do tadabbur on the Quran, and it's telling us that this is your duty. You have to do tadabbur on the Quran, and if you accept it in your mind, and if you believe in it as an ideology, then if your heart is not sick, if there is not lock upon your heart, then you can accept it in your heart and you can follow it. And the reason that God sent down this book is for you to do tadabbur on it, then you can be reminded by it. So if you have any question on this part, you can send me your question. Unfortunately, we couldn't have this week an online lecture. I'm recording it now, and if you have any question, you can send me your question through email or in the WhatsApp group. I can answer your question in the group or through the email, or I can explain it in the next week lecture. Thank you so much, and stay with us for the second section, which is about the conclusion of chapter 74.